The story begins with a man named Desai and his partner walking along a riverbank. They intend to end their lives together, hoping to remain side by side for eternity. However, before they can make the leap, coup suddenly strikes them. Desai awakens inside a church, and initially assumes he has reached the afterlife. His confusion grows until a girl named Annette intervenes, clarifying that he is still very much alive. When he questions her identity, Annette explains that she is his guide in this new land. He has been summoned to another world, selected as a hero destined to save its people. Desai quickly realizes their attempt to die failed. As Annette prepares to outline his mission, she recoils in shock upon spotting a bottle of sedatives. Realizing he is attempting to take his own life again, she uses her powers to heal him. Desai tells her to stop interfering, coldly stating that he is simply searching for a place to die. He begins consuming the pills once more, leaving Annette baffled. She reminds him that he was chosen to save the world, but Desai retorts that he never asked for such a burden. Annette reveals the truck-kun is actually an otherworldly selection truck responsible for his arrival. She explains that countless people are unhappy with their current existence, and only those struck by the truck receive the opportunity to redo their lives. Since the truck targeted him, she assumes he was miserable, but Desai grabs her staff in a fit of rage. He declares that the truck ruined the happiest moment of his life, and warns her not to judge whether a person is truly happy. As Desai stops to smoke, Annette struggles to process his perspective. To her he was rescued from a tragic end, yet he shows no gratitude. Hoping to change his mind, she checks his status window, as every summoned human usually receives superhuman powers. Her excitement turns to disbelief when she discovers he is remarkably weak. Furthermore, his status screen glows a deep red. Despite her healing magic, he remains severely poisoned. Searching for any saving grace, Annette checks for special skills but finds nothing. As Desai prepares to depart, she tries to stop him, admitting he must have been summoned by mistake. In his current state, survival is impossible. Desai simply smiles, noting that being a failure is the story of his life, regardless of the world. Annette begs him to stay, warning that monsters will surely kill him. Desai remains indifferent, as death is his ultimate goal. Annette reflects on her journey as a guide. While she was once eager to help heroes, the selfishness of previous summons had drained her enthusiasm. However, she senses that Desai is different. Before he leaves, she asks him to choose a profession. He simply explains that he has been a writer since the day he was born. As he walks away, Annette falls to her knees, her face flushing as she realizes he might be the man she has been waiting for. Later, Desai encounters a signpost but cannot decipher the language. He laments the lack of a nearby cafe while the system's voice continuously narrates his progress. To him, these notifications feel like a slow march toward death. He soon spots a girl named Tama, who is currently ensnared by a monstrous tree. Instead of rushing to her aid, Desai is struck by the beauty of a girl in peril. He calmly asks if he can write a novel about her. Tama pleads for her life, prompting Desai to jump toward the branches. He falls short and becomes trapped alongside her. Tama explains that the tree possesses a suction skill that drains the life force of its captives, meaning they will both perish in minutes. Rather than panicking, Desai finds the news wonderful and asks if she shares his excitement. Suddenly the tree begins to rot and wither, releasing them both. Desai sighs in disappointment, frustrated that his quest for death has failed yet again. Tama looks on in realization, noting that the monstrous tree was actually killed by the sheer potency of Desai's own poison. As the monster tree withers, Tama realizes it absorbed Desai's internal poison instead of his life force. Desai remains indifferent, expressing disappointment that he survived yet again. In contrast, a grateful Tama invites him to her home to thank him for saving her. This offer triggers a memory of Desai's partner, Saki, who attempted to die alongside him in their previous life. He wonders if she was also transported to this new world. When Tama tries to introduce herself, Desai repeatedly mentions Saki, suddenly finding a new reason to live. He must find his partner so they can complete their double suicide. Back at the church, Annette prays for Desai's safety. Her prayers are answered when he suddenly returns, but her joy turns to shock upon seeing Tama by his side. When Desai asks if she knows Saki, Annette panics, assuming he already has a lover. Unwilling to be left behind, Annette joins their party. When Tama reaches for Desai's hand, Annette quickly intervenes, smacking it away. Tama observes Annette's flustered reaction and realizes the guide has fallen for him. Blushing, Annette insists she is only there to protect him, as he is the weakest otherworlder she has ever encountered. The group continues their journey. Tama is shocked to learn Desai is from another world, assuming that explains his strength, while Annette remains convinced he is entirely helpless. Desai discovers an old coffin and decides to rest inside. He instructs them to wake him when they reach town, and shuts the lid. Insulted when Desai calls her by the wrong name, an angry Tama begins dragging the coffin toward the city. She eventually yells at him to walk on his own, but when he doesn't respond, she fears he has actually died. Annette calmly assures her he is simply resting. Upon reaching the capital, Annette suggests they seek an audience with the king. They arrive at the castle to meet King Thomas and his daughter Charlotte. The king offers them lodging on the condition that they share stories from their travels. However, the conversation turns awkward when Desai describes the peaceful sensation of sleeping in a coffin. King Thomas perceives this as a threat, forcing Annette to quickly change the subject by complimenting Charlotte's beauty. Thomas reveals that Charlotte is soon to be married. He summons two candidates, Gomez and Otto, explaining that the Dark Lord's influence has made monsters more aggressive. Being too old to lead, the king intends for Charlotte's future husband to succeed him. Since Charlotte hasn't chosen between the dependable soldier Gomez and her childhood friend Otto, the king asks Desai for his opinion. Desai bluntly refuses, stating that such a decision shouldn't be left to strangers, and remarking that Thomas is unfit to lead before walking out. That night, Annette notices Desai is struggling to sleep. He reveals that he never experiences peaceful rest. Before Annette can ask about Saki, she discovers Thomas has crawled into the same bed as Desai, leading to a loud argument. Desai leaves the room to clear his head, and encounters Charlotte gazing at a lake. He remarks that the water is so beautiful it makes him want to drown in it. Charlotte is taken aback by his deep depression, but Desai notes that she seems even more troubled than he is. She explains her dilemma. Gomez is a strong, reliable warrior her father trusts, while Otto is the kind friend who always cheered her up. Desai realizes Charlotte is his polar opposite. She lives to please her father, while he only ever caused trouble for his family. He leaves her with one thought: he never let anyone else tell him how to live his life. The following morning, Thomas gathers the group to witness Charlotte's final choice. The room falls into a stunned silence when Charlotte makes her announcement. She wishes to die with Desai. She explains that after speaking with him, she realized her feelings for the others were not what they seemed. Charlotte continues her shocking confession, explaining that she felt like a puppet. She believes Otto only wanted her to listen to his songs, and never truly cared for her. She also refuses to marry Gomez, bluntly stating that he smells. King Thomas urges her to be rational, but she calls him a fool, declaring that no one considered her feelings until she met Desai. Suddenly, Gomez transforms into a hideous monster. He reveals his true mission, to become king and surrender the kingdom to the Dark Lord. He assumes Charlotte saw through his disguise, but she clarifies that she only mentioned his scent because it was the truth. As Gomez prepares to slaughter everyone, the royal soldiers charge, but he easily blows them away. Amidst the chaos, Annette passes out from the shock of Charlotte's confession. Tama tries to wake her, but failing that, she grabs the unconscious guide and leaps to safety. As Tama prepares an attack, Otto begins to sing. She initially believes he is casting a buff, only to realize he is simply performing his latest song. Gomez rushes at Tama, and though she tries to defend herself, he lands a powerful blow. As Gomez moves in for the kill, Desai intervenes. He requests that Gomez kill him and Charlotte together. Gomez agrees and charges, but Charlotte breaks down in tears. She realizes she doesn't actually want to die, and wishes to protect her kingdom. Desai pushes her out of harm's way just as Gomez strikes. Fortunately, Annette regains consciousness and summons a barrier. Gomez's horns shatter against the shield, leaving him vulnerable. Tama seizes the moment, hitting him with a full-force attack that sends him flying out of the castle and into the lake below. In the aftermath, King Thomas apologizes to Charlotte for his negligence. With her father's blessing, she becomes the new queen. As Desai's group continues their journey, Annette and Tama worry about Charlotte's future. Desai remains calm, noting that since she made the decision herself, she will be fine. He reflects on his fascination with dying women but admits he also admires those who stand on their own feet. When Tama grows hungry, Annette suggests a break. Desai emerges from his coffin, asking for boiled tofu, rather than the bread Annette offers. She promises to find some in the next town. Tama asks about the distance to her home, and Annette estimates a few days, noting they must first stop at the Zayden Temple. She explains that summoned heroes arrive at one of 4 temples before heading to fight the Dark Lord. Desai clarifies that his only goal is finding Saki, not combat. Annette feels a sense of relief, glad that Desai won't be risking his life against the Dark Lord. Tama teases her about her feelings, causing Annette to blush. The guide explains that she only wants to help him because he restored her hope in her profession. However, Tama wonders what will happen if Saki is indeed his lover. This thought causes Annette to burst into tears, desperate to verify the truth. Annette worries the temple might reject her since she abandoned her post, but she reveals the head priest is a friend. She mentions she sent her resignation via her familiar, a small monster currently perched on Desai's head. Tama scolds the creature, only for it to spit out the original resignation letter. Furious that the letter was never delivered, begins to lash out, but Desai calms them down and names the monster Mellow. Desai retreats back into his coffin for a rest, but the peace is short-lived. A massive dragon suddenly appears before them. A girl named Wardalia descends from the sky, easily taming the beast. She warns the group to leave the area due to heavy monster activity. Glancing at the coffin, she assumes they have already suffered a casualty. When Desai climbs out, Annette explains he is just a weirdo from another world. This revelation triggers Wardalia's rage. She declares her intent to kill every other worlder, and prepares to attack. Wardalia launches a dark magic attack, and though Annette attempts to block it, the force is too immense and shatters her barrier. Noticing a distinct mark around Wardalia's neck, Annette realizes she is facing the Dark Lord herself. As Wardalia prepares a second strike, Desai intervenes, telling her to leave his companions alone, and declaring that he is ready to die. Wardalia stabs him and, believing he is dead, begins to walk away. To her shock, Desai stands back up. He explains that he feels the deep hatred within her and claims to understand her pain. Disturbed by his insight, Wardalia retreats on her dragon. Desai and the others barely survive the encounter. Mello drags the group to the temple, where Annette begs the priestess, Isha, to prioritize Desai's treatment. By the next day, Desai makes a full recovery. However, Tama is horrified to see him immediately drinking poison, as he feels his body has become too healthy. During a private moment, Isha admits to Annette that while she was shocked by her resignation, she is relieved Annette left a job that was too harsh for someone so pure. Isha warns her about traveling with other worlders, reminding her that they often become selfish and use their granted powers for personal gain, rather than fighting evil. To prove her point, an otherworlder named Karo appears, boasting about his ability to generate unlimited money. Isha quickly chases him off, insisting that all summoned heroes are just like him. Annette defends Desai, but Isha remains skeptical. Their conversation is interrupted by Desai himself, who asks for money to purchase drugs, leading Isha to believe the man has already corrupted her friend. When Isha asks about his abilities, Annette explains that despite having no powers, he stood against the Dark Lord to protect them. This confuses Isha, who reveals a shocking truth: the Dark Lord was already defeated 7 days ago. Annette discusses the timeline with Tama. They realize that Desai arrived in this world exactly 7 days ago, the same day the Dark Lord fell. This creates a mystery. If the threat was already gone, there was no reason for Desai to be summoned. Meanwhile, Desai falls into a depression. He finds himself unable to write about his recent experiences. When Annette asks if he wrote anything about their first meeting, he admits she hasn't inspired a single word, causing her to burst into tears. Seeking the same spark of excitement he felt when facing Wardalia, Desai agrees to go shopping with Annette. She insists on buying him a massive set of armor for protection, and tells him to wait while she gathers supplies. While Desai waits, Isha approaches him. She demands he stop traveling with Annette, fearing he will only bring her misery. Desai simply responds that the choice belongs to Annette. Nearby, another summoned hero named Suzuki announces to the town that since the other worlders defeated the Dark Lord, they are now the rightful rulers of the people. When the citizens reject this, Karo tells Suzuki about Annette's earlier rejection. Enraged, Suzuki finds Annette and pets her head. She immediately falls to her knees, losing her free will. Tama demands he release her, but Suzuki targets Tama as well, turning her into his slave. Isha warns him that the town will never accept his rule, prompting Suzuki to order his wolves to slaughter the inhabitants. He plans to burn the city to the ground and build his own kingdom from the ashes. As the wolves set the town ablaze, a brainwashed Tama begins attacking Desai. Fortunately, the heavy armor Annette bought protects him. Eventually Tama breaks through the metal, but a flying fragment knocks her unconscious. Desai quickly places her in a barrel to keep her safe from the fire. As the chaos unfolds, Isha flies toward Desai, lamenting the selfishness of other worlders. She reveals that Suzuki was once a weak, ordinary man, but his newfound power has turned him into a greedy monster. Desai asks Isha for Suzuki's location, and she directs him toward the church. Though Isha doubts he can face Suzuki alone, she follows him to provide support. Upon reaching the building, Desai pulls out a bottle of poison. Isha initially feels relieved, assuming he has a strategic plan, but her relief turns to horror when Desai simply drinks the toxin himself. While Isha suggests a stealthy backdoor approach to catch their enemy by surprise, Desai confronts Suzuki, stating he wishes to write a novel based on him. Suzuki assumes the story will chronicle his conquest of the world, but Desai clarifies his true intent. He wants to document how a man gained more power than he deserved and fell into the trap of greed. Insulted, Suzuki orders his wolves to tear Desai apart. Desai remains unfazed, continuing to write in his book while ignoring the predators. Isha intervenes, using her magic to blast the wolves, but she quickly becomes overwhelmed. When the wolves launch fireballs at Desai, Mello uses his helmet to deflect the flames back toward Suzuki. Suzuki then commands his largest wolf to finish the job. The beast bites down on Desai, and Suzuki claims victory, only to watch in shock as the wolf becomes infected by Desai's poisonous blood and dies instantly. As Karo flees in terror, Isha demands Suzuki's surrender. Instead, Suzuki orders the brainwashed Annette to kill them. Annette draws a knife and lunges at Isha. Refusing to hurt her friend, Isha suggests a retreat, but Desai stands his ground. He tells Suzuki that Annette's will is stronger than he realizes. Suzuki mocks him, confident that his spell is unbreakable and that Annette will remain his slave forever. However, as Desai approaches her, Suzuki notices Annette hesitating. She struggles against the magical compulsion, remembering how Desai's arrival freed her from the stagnation of her life. To break the spell, Annette stabs her own leg, using the pain to regain control of her mind. Desai asks Isha to heal her while a defeated Suzuki attempts to take his own life. Desai stops him, coldly stating that he cannot die yet because the novel isn't finished. Through Desai's insight, we learn Suzuki's tragic backstory. In his original world, Suzuki was relentlessly bullied and contemplated suicide, but lacked the courage to follow through. After being hit by Truckun, he met Isha, who told him he was a hero destined to fight the Dark Lord. While initially surprised by his new powers, he grew bitter when people continued to treat him like a loser, eventually using his skills to lash out. Suzuki argues that no one should expect a person who has known only suffering to suddenly become a selfless savior. Desai thanks him for the story, noting it allowed him to finish his book, though he doesn't yet consider it a masterpiece. Suddenly, a summoning circle appears beneath Suzuki, and a pillar of light swallows him. As the light fades, Isha realizes Desai has successfully sent Suzuki back to his original world. Annette observes that Desai has gained a new skill, leading her to wonder if his true purpose is to neutralize other worlders who abuse their power. Later, Isha provides Desai with a brand new coffin, and encourages Annette to support him, noting that his journey will only become more difficult. Isha wonders if Suzuki will return to a miserable life, but Desai remarks that it is now up to Suzuki to write his own story. The scene shifts to the town of Pape, where a priest named Wolf is seen drinking. He complains to Isha about the constant wars in his jurisdiction, and admits he dislikes the scent of the local residents. Another priest named Elton rebukes him for his prejudice. We learn that Elton is a pioneer, the first non-elf to be appointed as a priest, eventually reaching the rank of archbishop. Elton believes a person's species is irrelevant, noting he has met many elves who lack virtue. This remark angers Wolf, who demands they swap jurisdictions since Elton's area is so peaceful. Their bickering is interrupted by the arrival of Cardinal Miller, who calls the meeting to order. Cardinal Miller gathers the regional representatives, apologizing for summoning them during such a busy period. He requests a formal report from each region, but before they can begin, a girl named Arya arrives late. Miller introduces her as Annette's replacement, marking her first official meeting. When Arya claims she has nothing to report, Miller reminds her that Charlotte has recently ascended to the throne. The other priests share their updates. Elton reports that his region remains stable under the Pope's authority, while Wolf mentions he is managing the frequent conflicts between the dwarves. Isha then informs the group about Suzuki's recent rampage. This leads Miller to reveal the true purpose of the meeting, the status of the other worlders. He explains that since the Dark Lord's defeat, the Pope has decided to seal the magic circles that connect their world to others. While Wolf feels relieved that they will no longer have to guide new summons, Miller drops a bombshell. The 7 other worlders who defeated the Dark Lord have seized control of his lands. The Pope is deeply distressed, having received a formal declaration of war from the very heroes he once viewed as angels. Miller emphasizes that they must now deal with these chaotic heroes, as well as Wardalia, the Dark Lord's daughter. Elton and Wolf express their concerns, fearing that a united front of other worlders could pose a greater threat than the Dark Lord ever did. However, Isha offers a glimmer of hope, revealing Desai's unique ability to send other worlders back to their original worlds. Hearing this, the Pope arrives and demands to know more about Desai, viewing him as their final salvation. Unaware of the high-level meeting, Desai and his companions arrive at a new town to rest. Tama is thrilled at the prospect of sleeping in an actual bed. As they walk, the system announces that she has leveled up through intense training, though she laments that her training consists mostly of dragging Desai's coffin. A young boy named Nir approaches them, offering directions to an inn and valuable information for a price. Nir describes a service group that pairs other worlders with parties to ensure their safety. Tama reacts with disgust based on her past experiences, but Nir insists that these heroes are the world's only hope. He offers to introduce them to a legendary warrior in exchange for gold. Tama refuses, but Annette, prioritizing Desai's safety above all else, immediately pays the boy. Nir is startled when Desai climbs out of his coffin, and though the group identifies him as a hero, Nir refuses to believe them. He takes the money and promises to return with a warrior, telling them to wait at the inn. As night falls, Annette waits anxiously for Nir's return. Desai bluntly tells her that the boy isn't coming back. The inn's receptionist overhears them and reveals the truth. Nir has never met a real adventurer in his life. Realizing she has been scammed, Annette begins to panic. Desai, curious about the boy, asks for more details. The woman explains that Nir is an orphan surviving on the streets by tricking visitors. She admits she feels sorry for him, noting that if the heroes he admires truly existed, they wouldn't let a child live in such misery. This was Annie Sage, and I'll see you in the next parts.